Today, I am lucky enough to be joined, actually sandwiched, in between two massive heavyweights. Before we get into this video, go to the subscribe button and hit that, and also go to the notification bell and hit that, so you can be updated for when I release new content. In the music publishing game, to the left of me is Hitton Baradia, to the right of me is Peter Van Bodegraffen. I wanted to do a much bigger intro than that, but I wanted you guys to actually explain what it is you do first to the people, and also what the f is music publishing? Like, come on, let's be real, like musicians don't even know what music publishing is, so why would the actual public know? So Hitton, you go first. As you are my publisher, I'm signed to Phrase Differently, company that he built from scratch. I'll let you take it away.
You've said it all. No. So is it this camera or this camera?
Both of them.
Okay. So yeah, I run a company called Phrase Differently, where Duval is signed. We've been going for 10 years. We basically identify amazing talent, new songwriters. We sign them, we develop them, we help them write better songs, we register those songs, we find opportunities for those songs, then we collect the income and we pay the writer back. So that's essentially what we do at Phrase Differently, and you've been with us for 7 years and you just re-signed for another few years, so welcome to the club again.
Thank you very much.
Duval was one that we signed when he was still wearing his short trousers. I remember the first meeting very, very well. It was in a coffee shop in Parsons Green at Starbucks. Am I allowed to say that on there? Choop-dee. And from that first meeting, I knew that there was something amazing about you. There was a sense, there was a sparkle in your eyes, there was a sense of greatness to be achieved, even though everything that you'd played me up until then was far from brilliant. There was so much potential in you to achieve something that was brilliant. And what I loved about you was your ambition, and I knew that by hook or by crook, you'd actually get there. I believed in you, and that's why, you know, we started developing you, and we didn't sign you for about a year afterwards, until a year afterwards, did we? We were just doing a year of development. And that's essentially what publishers do. They develop writers to become better writers.
Well, good publishers.
Yeah, we won't talk about.
Can you name some bad ones, please?
All of them? No. So that's what I do. I run Phrase Differently, and pretty much Peter does similar, but much better. I'll pass it over.
So that's Hitton Baradia, everyone. Now over to Peter Van Bodegraffen, who is an absolute giant, not only because he's tall, but
a legend.
He's an actual legend in this game. These guys are really like unsung heroes. Not many people know what music publishing is and how much they do for artists, producers and writers globally. So Peter?
Yeah, it's and not better, because it depends on the territory, but we as publishers, I feel responsible when people ask them to represent their rights, their intellectual property, their babies. They, of course, a lot of times it's like the basis is like a commercial deal that you make with the writer, but I always keep in mind that it's something which is very, very close to the writer, and that the business side is very important, but I have to be very tactful in knowing to do a very protective always, to see if I can protect the rights of the people, because I'm from a very small territory, the Dutch territory, and maybe we get a little bit later too, there's also bigger artists coming from there, but I try to also teach the composers that come at my table, and I sometimes give like lectures to like 5 or 6 or sometimes 10 people who are interested in publishing and who say, can I sign and can you give me a little advance and then I buy something? I said, first let's sit. I'm going to explain what you do, because when you go to your mom and you're in your room every day writing songs and making music, your mom and your dad would like to know, how can you make a living of that?
Yes.
One of those days that you leave school, and again I said, if I hear from your mom or dad that you don't do well at school, I'll destroy the agreement. Forget it.
You will literally rip up the contract.
Yes, I'll rip up the contract because yeah,
That's good.
I don't want that. So I help you, but I want to guarantee that you also do your best at school, because there's always, maybe you're not as talented as you hope you would be, and then there's not something you can fall back on. But besides that, if you spend all that time on working and you decide that it's going to be your profession, twice a year there's going to be the statement, and the statement is a review of your income, what you accomplished in the 6 months before that period, to show what the revenues were that you were making. If those statements don't come, your family or your wife or your parents will say, why are you spending all these hours? So I explained them that it's very important for them to know the ins and outs of publishing as well. In other words, what do you do? How can you make your money? When can you expect it? What do you have to watch? And also, and it's not legal, but at least that they know the ins and outs.
Yeah.
And then, in addition, so that's the administrative point. The next point is that a good publisher tries to have like creative input as well. Introduce you to people. I remember that I flew you over to Amsterdam to write with Afrojack before people even knew who Afrojack was when I signed him, for instance. And there were more. You even came to Amsterdam for more situations earlier to make videos. You remember those?
I do remember that.
So, and
I remember that too.
I flew to Amsterdam to make a video that you'll never see, ever.
Just email me and I'll send it to you.
Okay, that's good. So this is very important. This is why I like sitting down with you guys, because even now, after being signed for the best part of 6 years, and a lot of my friends are signed to different companies for the best part of 10 years, I still can't have a clear conversation with them about what publishing is, or why it's important to emerging artists as well as established artists or writers and producers. So having you guys here to clarify in layman's terms, let's be real, what it means. Essentially, it's two things. It's being protected and your royalties being collected.
Yeah, but it's for songwriting royalties. So every time you hear a song on the radio, there are two sets of rights.
Yeah.
There's the master, which is the actual recording, and that belongs to a record label.
Right.
And then there's the publishing, which, as Peter said, is the intellectual property behind the song, the lyrics, the melody, the chords. And that is what a publisher looks after, the songwriting. And both sets of rights, the master and the publishing, earn royalties. So those have to be collected. Those have to be registered. So I think that, not a lot of people understand what publishing is, because they don't separate the record into two sets of rights. But there are two sets of rights. There's actually even a third set of rights, which we'll go into later on, which is PPL, neighbouring rights.
Mm-hmm.
But here, publishing is really about songwriting. Whether you're a professional songwriter, whether you're an artist who writes, whether you're a producer who makes beats, that's still songwriting. And that's what the publisher looks after.
Great.
And then before that, it goes to this. You, as a writer, you have to become a member of a copyright society. And
Why?
Because, I'll tell you why. Everybody who because everybody who's like using songs, in other words, intellectual property, has to pay for that. So the radio.
Do you hear that? Anyone who uses your song needs to pay for it.
Yes, so that's radio, that's TV, that's streaming, that's CDs, that's commercials, that's TV, that's all kind of rights.
Even if you're not signed to a label.
Yeah, because the user or the CD company or the streaming company, they have to pay it to a society. So if you don't register and if you don't become a member, the money stays with those societies. That's what they call the black box. So those are unallocated income.
How much money is in this black box and where is it?
I wish I would know. And then there's another source of income for young guys and for you as well. Every gig that Disciple does, for instance, 5% of the income for the ticket goes to the Performing Rights Society. The Performing Rights Society collects all of that money and distributes it again to the people who played their songs.
I'm ashamed that I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
Right.
It's a big thing. So you play so much big concerts, and you know as well, John, what they do. I need a song list of the set list what you played and which date you played it, and we register that with the societies.
Right.
So we represent many of the big DJs. For instance, we do Armin, Fedde Le Grand, Hartwell, the show.
That's right. Sorry, I didn't introduce you properly. I introduced you quite well, I think, and I'll get back to you. But Peter van Rodegraven is probably a pioneer in the publishing game now. Could you just let people know exactly who you worked with, who's become big under your wing? For one instance, I know when I met Peter, he was part of a company called Tauber who developed and then sold on a massive TV company, TV program, TV show called The Voice.
True.
So can you tell people other things that you've done?
Yes, I worked with Chesto from when he was working in a record store in Rotterdam. I've been working with Afrojack from, he did nothing.
When he was just Jack.
when he was just Nick. When he was just Nick. And so there's many people like that as well. And I built up a couple of companies and I sold them as well. And now I joined a company called Cloud9, which is venture party of Armada. Armada is one of the biggest dance label. So that's why we represent many of the big DJs of the world, big part of the DJ Mag list. So coming back to that point, it's all these, Armin played twice the big arena of 60,000 people each. 5% of the ticket goes to the Performing Rights Society. He plays like 60% of his own songs on those gigs. Wow. So you see how much money it is and how important it is that we register and keep track of what's happening on that.
Right.
So
I'm let's put this in a working situation. I'm a talented producer and songwriter. How the hell do I get in touch with the likes of you guys?
Many ways. I mean, how did you get in touch with me? Do you remember?
Well, luckily I was introduced by someone else, the vice president of Sony at the time, which was a friend of my mum's, and she basically said I suck, but there's this guy who also sucks. His name is Hitton, and he's looking to sign some sucky people. So that's how we got the. Yeah. That's how I got the invite. But
she basically passed me on to you because we could afford you.
Oh, that makes me sound so shit. But now, in this day and age, if you don't have that kind of contact, how the do I get my music to phrase differently?
Right, so now we're getting a lot of our referrals from lawyers, from music lawyers. So, we get probably 2 or 3 SoundCloud links for different artists and writers every week from different lawyers all around the world. Before, it was really through word of mouth, and it still very much is. We have 7 studios here, and all of our writers are writing with new writers all the time. So when we hear a song that is amazing, and we obviously immediately ask for the splits, because then that song has to be registered before it's pitched. And if we see that someone is not published on a great song, then we want to know more about that writer. We want to hear other songs that they've done. We want to make sure that their talent is consistent. So that's another way.
What if I'm 16 years old, I'm dope as I have all this gear in my room, I can make music, I can write music, pretty much how you met me basically, but I don't have a lawyer. can I tweet you? Can I Instagram you? Can I send you a pic? How does it work?
Well, if you send us a pic, I don't think we'd be able to download it. But I mean, the way you can get hold of us is just go to our website, which is phrasedifferently.com.
But do you listen to? Because I remember sending Sony and other massive companies.
Did you send it to us?
No.
There you go.
So you're saying that some people will get back to you, some people won't, but you'd have to try everyone.
You just have to keep trying, no matter how many times you fail. You have to keep. If you don't, just because you buy a lottery ticket every week, doesn't mean you're going to win the lottery, the jackpot every week.
Very true.
You just have to be in it to win it. We actually signed a girl an artist and a songwriter from Canada, who filled out the Get in Touch form on our website. So that was our first contact with her. She uploaded some songs, we listened to them, and 6 months later we signed her. So it does work, but for everything we sign, there's probably about 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 things we don't sign. And it's not because it's not good enough, it just didn't connect with us.
What happens if you sign something but it doesn't work and you've given them so much money?
Yeah, we try to avoid that as possible, because one of the things in our business is risk management. That you have to watch out that you don't pay too much too quick, and that's sometimes if the major companies start competing, and I hope they do that a lot, the prices go up. And I understood there are some things in the past whereby somebody signs a writer and 3 years later that's the next time they see them, and in between they were not in touch. What I experienced, that for us it's a good way, and that's why I'm happy that we had some brief discussions, that you also want to be more involved yourself as a publisher as well, because one of the things that I always find is that I meet a lot of new writers through referrals of people I already work with, because you as artists or producers are meeting new people much earlier, a lot of times, than we, because it's easier to walk in the studio for someone who's like, know that a friend of him is working in the studio with you, and he come by, he gets 5 minutes, and you say, okay, play me that song, and then if it's something which could be relevant, and then you introduce him to Nathan or to another publisher. The next step now that you're doing is, maybe I can help him myself. Maybe I can guide him. I can use your network to get him known as well, and get him experienced as well.
Yeah.
So I find a lot of writers through referrals. So that's why I like to make publishing deals with producers.
Okay.
And set up like a JV with a producer, and he works with new talents, and then we assign those people to that joint GV.
So you almost kind of force producers and writers to be there, to be quite entrepreneurial and have their own mind in the business. So I just want to talk about something that's it's kind of an untapped conversation, and that's I wouldn't call it a battle, but let's call it a battle for this vlog. It's a battle between the independents and the majors, and you having 12 years experience at Universal in the marketing department. 10 years?
And A&R.
Let's call it 12, it sounds better. And the A&R department, right? At Universal.
Yeah.
So knowing that, leaving that behind, because it's kind of like a security blanket you had there, right? Leaving that behind to start your own shop, your own boutique, which is not so much a boutique now, because you went from having 3 or 4 writers to now having 21, me included. What are the major differences that you see between the independent publisher and the major publisher?
That's a tough question without being controversial. I mean, I think there are publishers who are major and independent who are amazing. But it's just the nature of the business and the size of the business. Major publishers are kind of like a massive fishing net. They trawl the oceans and pick up a lot of fish, and not all of those fish are going to be sent to supermarket, you know. That's a very bad metaphor. But so basically they sign a lot without even really caring about what it is that they're signing. As long as there's some traction on what they're signing, either there's a cut, there's a release that has some income on it, they'll want to sign it, because, you know, they want to just keep growing their market share and growing their earnings. For us, it's very much a boutique operation where, you know, we don't have the funds of Universal or Sony ATV or Warner or some of the other ones, but it's about really focusing in on things that you really, really love. I learned a very, very long time ago that, you know, when you chase money, you end up poor. But when you actually chase talent and people who don't give up in their pursuit of art, then eventually the money will come. It's so we sign very few people. Yeah, 21 might sound like a lot, but it's very few compared to the thousands and thousands on major labels, major publishers all around the world. We have a very involved relationship, a very close relationship with all of our writers. I think we speak to most of them on a daily basis. You know, we see you on a daily basis. I mean, you're just over there.
Do you think you have a more hands-on, more caring approach in your experience?
In my experience, yes. It's just because this is not a volume business for us. This is about really picking a few very talented individuals and trying to help them reach greater heights, rather than signing 100 and hoping that 2 or 3 of them will earn enough to support the rest.
But also, let me speak on behalf of Hitton as well. If you sign to Phrase Differently, one thing is for sure, God bless, that Hitton will be there for the coming 10 years as your point people, as the one you can speak to and discuss with. And so, and if you talk to if you sign to a major company, it could be, and we see that with switching of label managers, etc. Somebody could sign you to a record company, and then the label manager leaves, and you could lose attention of the remaining people. I think, like with signing to like a Phrase Differently, you know that the key man will be there because it's his company.
Yeah.
So that's
I'm definitely a working example of that, because
that's a great example. Then somebody else is that in the negotiations between copyright societies and record companies, independent companies can take a standpoint totally before their writers, because that's the only interest they have. With the major companies, it could be that the publishing company, which is smaller than the label end, can't ask for higher rates or other conditions to their parent record label, for instance.
Oh, right. So Universal Publishing and Universal label, there may be conflict of interest
so
there.
like when the CD was still very active in our territories, the mechanical rate was 8% of the retail price. Mm-hmm. And each time that the publisher said, yeah, can we improve that from 8 to 10, the record company would say, hey, shut your mouth, because that's going to cost us profit.
Right.
Yeah. So there's difference of interest sometimes. So
yeah.
But there are great major publishing companies as well, of course.
I feel like this is going to be a 2-part thing, because you just spoke about mechanical, and I think we can dive into the world of publishing a lot deeper than we have today. But I just want to get your opinion on one thing people should do and one thing people shouldn't do when it comes to music publishing or trying to acquire a deal.
First is what they should do is read about it, buy a good book, check any website that would say how the streams of income will go for you as a composer. Very, very important. And 2, don't sign a deal too quick. Think about it and talk to your parents, ask a lawyer or ask a friend who has experience what a good step be, and don't think, oh, I need that record on my wall, so if I don't sign now, I don't get that record. You'll get many more records if you take your time, and you will be successful.
Very good advice. And that's it from you, Hilton.
Yeah, I mean, I agree very much with Peter, but one thing is that you don't need a publishing deal to write songs. It doesn't validate you as a songwriter. What you need is to find someone who you connect with on a creative and a human level to be your publisher, and someone who, you know, will not give up on you no matter what, because he or she has signed you in the first place and will stand by you.
And there you go, trying to shed some light on this grey area that we call music publishing. I think I understand it a little bit more now, just a little bit more. And thank you so much, Peter, thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting us.
So you just heard an in-depth discussion about music publishing and what that means to people like me, emerging artists and also established artists, and how protection and collecting are the names of the game in music publishing.